A recent video by Eugene Teo really triggered me. Now, before you say anything, this is not a diss to the guy. Props, the video was very informative in many ways, and there were a lot of positives about it. However, the overall idea and overall message somewhat triggered me. For those of you that don't know, Eugene made a video where he says that he's moving away from traditional bodybuilding training, or at least not necessarily doing everything based on what maximizes muscle growth, but rather focusing on other important facets of fitness and in general doing the things that will make you a more fit, more athletic, more well-functioning human being. However, I disagree with the overall message of the video. But that said, let me touch on some of the positives first. The video does promote physical activity and promotes the idea that, hey, you should do things that make you fitter, that make you more mobile if you want to. You don't necessarily need to do only the things that maximize muscle growth or avoid things that will supposedly interfere with maximum muscle growth. Keep in mind, guys, the majority of you do not really care about optimal gains. You do not really care about that 5 or 10% extra gain. And in reality, you could do many of the things people have traditionally advised you not to do because they will interfere with maximum muscle growth, still be super jacked and still enjoy yourself. So if you like cycling, hiking, playing sports, doing whatever, training with a minimum effective dose approach, and also doing a bunch of other types of physical activity, you can still be super jacked, super fit, and you don't have to necessarily avoid physical activity. And in general, physical activity is great. Go out and do whatever you like. It's not going to massively interfere with your gains. That said, though, what triggered me was the way the video presented bodybuilding training as this sort of non-functional training that leaves a bunch of gaps that will then make you be less fit and less fit for purpose as it pertains to daily activities and overall daily life. The examples that were used were Eugene when he was an enhanced bodybuilder where he felt stiff, and then other enhanced bodybuilders, and some anecdotes where he said, oh yeah, I've worked with people that were stiff and I've worked with high-level bodybuilders that weren't feeling great. But keep in mind, most of those examples were in people that were not your average lifter, natural lifter out there who's trying to maximize hypertrophy by lifting and being physically active multiple times per week, but rather people that are way above their natural weight limit, who are using PDs and who are doing a lot of things that the majority of you won't do. Throughout the video, he had experts from different sort of sides of fitness, like mobility and some like higher level conditioning athletes. I'm not exactly sure what those athletes were, but very fit people, where he essentially showed that, look, I'm not as mobile as the guy who specializes on being able to be as mobile as possible, and I'm not as fit. I cannot keep up with the female athlete who is an absolute beast. Therefore, I'm lacking in overall fitness. And that's my issue here. When it comes to overall health, the literature is pretty clear. If you're doing 150 to 300 minutes of vigorous physical activity per week, and that means like high intensity cycling, running, and in general things that will get your heart rate up and have you sweating, you're reaping a lot, if not most, of the health benefits that physical activity has to offer as it pertains to all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease risk. On the flip side, if you don't do vigorous physical activity and you do 300 to 600 minutes of moderate physical activity, like lifting weights and walking, you're still getting the same benefits. Obviously, you can mix and match and do a bit of both, but if you're walking roughly 10,000 steps per day and lifting multiple times per week, even if that's with low volumes, you are ticking a lot of boxes. Keep in mind, when it comes to resistance training and all-cause mortality risk, the literature does show that just 60 minutes of lifting per week is enough to maximize the risk reduction from all-cause mortality, and any amount of lifting will lower your risk of dying by roughly 15%. At the same time, when it comes to mobility, and Eugene touches on that, he does mention that if you are doing traditional lifting, you will get pretty mobile in certain ranges of motion or certain movements, but that doesn't necessarily prepare you for other ranges of motion that you won't be exposed to, and that is presented as this like potential risk factor for overall well-being and daily activity. But before we get into some of the specific points, let's touch on what training for maximum muscle growth constitutes for the average individual who's not on PEDs. So if you're somebody who's trying to maximize muscle growth, you will likely be in the gym multiple times per week, lifting and performing a plethora of exercises at relatively large ranges of motion, multiple exercises per muscle group, and training the entirety of your body. You will also be doing some form of physical activity outside the gym in the form of steps or higher intensity cardio. From an overall health standpoint, you're ticking most, if not all, boxes, especially if you're in the gym performing high volumes of training. And if you're somebody who is training pretty hard, you're also reaping a bunch of the cardiovascular benefits that resistance training has to offer. At the same time, being physically active outside the gym is is also what is ticking a lot of health boxes as far as your cardiovascular health goes. From a mobility standpoint and overall freedom of movement or whatever, you are also ticking all the boxes, I'd say, and maybe more boxes than you need for daily activities, for daily living. Keep in mind, the majority of you are not out there doing all sorts of weird movements and finding yourselves in weird positions. And if you are consistently strength training and performing a bunch of different movements and training the entirety of your body and using long ranges of motion, it's very unlikely that you're missing out on a ton of benefits simply because you're not used to being in a specific position, or you're not fully accustomed to every possible range of motion. As far as being in the outside world, unless you have some crazy job, if you're doing a squat pattern, a hip hinge pattern, you're doing some sort of vertical pull, horizontal pull, vertical press, horizontal press, yada, 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 you're gonna be pretty solid as far as dealing with most things that life has to throw your way. The idea that unless you're working in every range of motion, you're missing out on these huge benefits for overall life quality, I don't think is based on much actual evidence. Keep in mind, people, in order to function, you don't need to be super strong or super fit or anything like that. You need to tick some basic boxes, and that will allow you to have a pretty solid quality of life. The same goes with overall fitness. In his video, Eugene Teo shows himself not being able to keep up with a very fit athlete, but I'm pretty sure that if we were to look at his heart rate recovery, resting heart rate, etc., just from lifting and being physically active, even before incorporating higher intensity cardio or whatever, I'm pretty sure that he and many of you out there, many of you lifters who are training to maximize muscle growth, would be in the really good category, in the fit category. Not in the athlete beast category, but that's not necessary in order to be healthy and have a good life. The same goes with strength. The same way there's a point of diminishing returns where getting stronger won't make you more functional. So if you're able to deadlift a couple of plates, maybe slightly more, maybe even less, you're pretty well equipped for whatever life throws your way. And you're reaping a lot of the health benefits as far as like bone mineral density and overall trained to go-ness, which is a new scientific term I came up with. He also touches on the potential importance of moving explosively, but I do again think that based on the current evidence, all that is very overstated. Keep in mind that the idea of doing other things besides just lifting for the sake of muscle growth, or only doing the things that maximize muscle growth, is a good message overall. But if you are somebody who trains purely for hypertrophy, you're one of those freaks out there. From an overall health and overall quality of life standpoint, you're killing it. You are very likely meeting overall physical activity guidelines. You are reaping all the health benefits that resistance training has to offer. You will be very mobile if you're performing exercises with a full range of motion. And if you're the one freak who has to bend and twist on a daily basis, I would argue that your daily life will prepare you for the movements that you have to do. Now, the idea that you have to be ready for any sort of scenario life throws your way, where you may need to move explosively that one time or whatever, then we can get into another discussion where you have to literally prepare for everything, and I don't think that makes much sense. The overall message that I'm trying to convey is that if you are lifting weights and you are physically active outside the gym, you are doing amazingly. You are killing it. And especially if you're a freak who's doing a ton of volume in the gym and you're performing a ton of exercises and you're also on top of your overall cardio, it's very likely that you've ticked a ton, if not all boxes, as far as general health and function go. Using high-level bodybuilders on PEDs to argue that training for maximum hypertrophy or only training for muscle growth leads to all these sort of deficits as far as like quality of life and overall fitness goes, I don't think is very fair, and I don't think it is really backed by actual evidence. When it comes to being healthy enough to live a good life, lifting weights and being physically active are more than enough for you to do so. If you want to outsource your training though and gain at least 25 years of life expectancy, myadapt.com for the smartest coach in your pocket. Use DRPAK for a 2-week free trial, or drpak.com if you want to work with me, and I can give you all the secrets to becoming as mobile and as functional as humanly possible. Joking aside though, for those of you out there that don't necessarily care about maximum growth training and you are just lifting weights and being physically active, even in that case, you're ticking a lot of boxes. Keep in mind that there are a few caveats here. If you are pressed for time, doing higher intensity cardio is likely a good idea if you're not able to get your steps in or be physically active outside the gym. And at the same time, if you're just doing minimum effective dose workouts, you will have to do a bit more physical activity outside the gym, which comes back to, potentially supplementing with some higher intensity physical activity. Overall, don't feel like you need to do more if you're already lifting plenty and you're very physically active. And at the same time, time, you can give yourself a tap on the back and feel reassured that you're still doing plenty, even if you're just lifting a few times per week and you're doing your steps outside the gym. You're very likely reaping a lot of the health and functionality benefits that resistance training and general physical activity have to offer. That said, don't fall for the optimization trap where you're chasing 5 to 10% gains and you're missing out on playing sports with your friends or being more physically active, going on that hike, whatever. If you're not a professional bodybuilder and you just want to be jacked, the literature is pretty clear on the interference effect. It's nothing to worry about. Cardio won't kill your gains, other types of physical activity won't kill your gains, and just be physically active, lift your weights, do your due diligence outside the gym, and you'll be covered. Thank you so much for watching. Hypertrophy training is functional. Let's stop with that BS. If you're a natty lifter and you're training for max hypertrophy, you're absolutely killing it. Peace!